Okay. We're in the bottom of Lamed Hay. The line that we are more or less there, we would like to start from that line. The line begins with Etum Tacharishon, which is 7 lines from the bottom. We are discussing from various angles the principle that even when it comes from, when the Hamshocha is from Keser, which is Makif, if it is from Pnimius HaKeser, from Pnimius HaMakif, there are two things. There is this the Blig Vul element, while at the same time it's a focus Hamshocha, and there's a Medida. So we pointed out the way it is in Tshuva, that in Tshuva there is also requirement, there is also Medida, there is the Tshuva. In Torah there is a Medida that Torah is Chochmah, and then and this is B'Tzalmeinu, in the Tzela. And then we're going further and identifying this Inyan in various aspects. One is in Shabbos, that in Shabbos there is the ultimate Madrei in Shabbos. This is the Raiva, the Chol Raivim, Mokir HaTa'anugim, which is beyond Tainug, which is the Mokir HaTa'anugim. And that is also in Shabbos. And now we went, and it's pointing out that in Kriyas Yamsuf there is also a similar meaning. Because by Kriyas Yamsuf, Moshe Rabbeinu told the Yidden that their Aveda consists in Atem Tacharishon, and that you should be quiet. This Tacharishon, which is not simply saying, don't mix, stay out of it. This Tacharishon is an avoider form of avoider. And as the Zohar says, V'tisoron midi mishum diabatiko talia, because actually this is a name from Atik, and Atik you do not solicit. So, yeah, you don't solicit, So what is the Tacharishun they represent? Tacharishun represents, it says, Habitul Dishtiko, a beetle that is expressed in Shtiko. In keeping quiet.
What's the type of Tisaron?
What?
Tisaron?
Tisaron is from the word Hisoirus. Shouldn't be me'oir or anything. Beetle dishtiko. So this is also a kind of a medido, a kind of a form allowing this type of gilui. Beetle dishtiko, which is habitul hayeser elyoin, which is the highest kind of beetle. Bebchinas hanochas kol atzmusi legamri. Mikol v'kol. To translate the words, a beetle in the kind, in the state of hanochas kol atzmusi legamri, of putting down his entire own presence totally. Mikol v'kol, totally and totally. Now, clearly, just to get us a little bit of a sense what this is, Anochas kol atzmusa v'gamri mikol v'kol, putting his mitzias down. As we said yesterday, it does not mean just disregarding himself, hefker. A non-entity. A non-entity is not a keli for anything. Here, this beetle makes him a receptacle. Makes him a receptacle for that which is beyond pnimi, beyond definition. Atik. What I'm going to attempt to identify this in a little bit. What allows a person to put himself, his mitzias down mikol v'kol, totally? Now, in our world, in our physical world, let's take it in the other extreme, in the physical world. As we speak all the time, the reasoning and the reality identified from a worldly perspective by science is the exact opposite of this. Even though they call it objective knowledge, it's the exact opposite of this beetle. Because the whole basis, what defines knowledge, that which touches you very strongly, undeniably, First, the primary proof of existence is that if I hit the table, it hurts. I can always point out exactly the way the dog learns. This is why they have a difficulty in identifying the difference between a human being and a dog. Because if you take the human quality, that's not real knowledge. That's a very subjective. That's your personal knowledge. This is not the reality of the world. That's from their perspective. So how do you relate to the reality perspective of the world? That which affects you, your own mitzvahs. Here we're saying the exact opposite. Okay, now before we go to the exact opposite, we disagree with that. And we say no. A human being has koiches hanefesh. Nefesh koiches. On the level of nefesh. He knows things that are beyond experience. He knows things because of the life of his nefesh. Not because he was touched by anything in the world. Beyond experience. He knows things because he's alive. And from the life perspective, he knows the significance of truth, and he knows Elokus and so forth. Like the Rambam says, the first thing before Chochmah sets in, we know that there is a first being. This is a nefesh knowledge. It's not found out by experiment, by proof. There's no physical means that will lead you to that conclusion. This is a human knowledge, neshama knowledge. But this is also knowledge. To know there is knowledge. This knowledge, yes, it's a neshama knowledge, it's a ruch nizikin. But this ruch nizikin, as we said, there's a medida. I know it. Between the two of us.
Got a dollar. My house, I give $1 to the mosquito.
There's a knowledge. Knowledge is not a personal experience. Knowledge, I know it. Which means there is let us put it in a very logical form. Knowledge means that there is something, and there is the known, there is the knower, and there is the means by which I know. Like the Rambam says, the Alter Rebbe is on Yodua, Yoidea, and the means by which he knows, the Koyach HaYodea. There's a process involved. And when he knows, it's he and the thing that he knows are not the same thing. Are two separate entities. Since that they're not the same thing, therefore, it already means that he knows by some kind of a personal touch. He knows. He can relate to it. Therefore, it's not knowing the inyan in its purity. It is knowing the inyan the way you know it. So even though, yes, you put yourself down, you do not go into the physical reality, the physical experience and so forth, it is a ruch nizikin, but still there is a etzem, there is me. And I know this truth. This kind of, at that stage, we can go very high, but to know the pnimis hamakiv is not possible. This market does not go into the category of knowledge. Even though there is knowledge, but that knowledge is beyond knowledge. You don't know what you know. You know it not by virtue of the fact, oh, I know it, but it's there. That's how you know it. You know it by virtue of its truth, not by virtue of your ability to know. Your ability to know is totally uninvolved. Hanoches atzmusim mikol v'kol means to give up completely that element of knowledge that I know as an entity. What are the circumstances that permits a person to give up completely that element? It is the recognition of something completely beyond knowledge. This is a very important point. It is not the lack of recognition. It is not the absence of knowledge. It is not hefker. Okay, you do whatever you want. No, there is a personal involvement. The personal involvement is stepping out of this person. There's a truth that is beyond my ability to know. And that's the truth I'm relating to. And I don't want to know it. I want to relate to it. Let's wait to hear social media. Somebody has not muted their phone, and we beg you to do so.
This is where he senses the Sirus of the Liela Mitzaratzma.
It is a Sirus of the Liela Mitzaratzma. And the Sirus of the Liela Mitzaratzma, what is his response? How does he receive it? If he begins to try to identify it, then he doesn't get what is being given. And he knows it the way he knows it.
This is not just when he stands in an Asuya. This is not just when a person is standing in an Asuya that he takes this stance. He's actually seeking not on subject.
It depends what Nisoyin you're talking about. No, in Nisoyin, the Gemara says an interesting thing. The classic Nisoyin that we have is Hanani Meshori Bazaria. Meshori Bazaria were young children, basically, that were brought back from Yerushalayim, and they were thrown into a flame. And they were warned, if you don't bow to this idol, we're going to throw you into the fire. And they said, be ready. They thrown them in the fire, and they came out miraculously. They came out alive. Unscathed. So the Gemara says that Ilu Nagdu, if they had Nagdu, if they were tortured, they then conceivably they would not have been able to carry it on, to tolerate it. Because this was in the moment, they were able to you go for it. What? Don't do clearly. It's an extremely relevant effect. What is this nagdu? What is the difference between the moment or nagdu? At the moment, it is conceivable that one can make that kind of a decision. Nagdu now goes beyond decision. This is what's called the kesem. It's not possible. There's no option. This is where he's bugging the call. There's only the kesem. This is the atom tachadish. Makriyas Yamsu, even was standing over there, as the expression is, between a rock and a hard place. Right? The Mitzrim on one hand and the Yamsu on the other hand. And we have to remember they were standing there with their children and wives and children. So this was not something that an individual was doing. A whole nation was in that state. At that moment, the point of awareness was not, are we going to be saved? It's not a question of saving. It wasn't a question of danger. What's going to be with us? What's going on? It was a completely different environment, different question.
What's going on in the sense that here they were taken out of Mitzrayim and mamash miracles, and then yet they're being led to this place where there's no...
but they didn't look at what's going on. Look what's going on. What a question. Because if what's going on again, there is a presence.
So they saw that there was something that was
completely beyond.
Totally beyond. And how do they relate to, how do they deal with that, the Tacharish?
It's because at that moment they recognize that there is that the reality of the Kesef is beyond Metzius. There was not a distinction between the Lamailo and the Mato. It wasn't a question of the Milo is going to save me by my merit. He has to be interested in me to know to save me. There was not a distinction between the Milo and the Mato. This is what we learned in the past. So that there is Ayin, and then there is Chochmah. Chochmah is like a mamutza between the Koinik and the Koichas. In Chochmah, even the Chochmah is pure, but Chochmah recognizes that they're in Metzius. And has to translate the Oinig into Metzius. That Chokhmah is not capable of dealing with this situation. If there is a distinct Metzias, then I can't stay quiet. So what are you going to do with me? This is rising up beyond that. This is the shtiko element of Chokhmah, as we're going to see in a moment. As we said then, that in Chokhmah itself there are these madregas. There is that which is in Chokhmah, that which is the kol, when it's high in Chokhmah. The oineg element in the Chokhmah.
This would only be, this level would only be possible, so to speak, when a person is led to it. In other words, it's not, because in a normal situation a person is supposed to utilize his chachma, but only when there's a certain eis ratzon or whatever it is, then this is appropriate, or whatever. This is being granted to him. This.
That is correct. That is correct. We talk in terms of an individual, yes. But then there is another element. The whole Metzias of the world. And certainly the giving of the Torah is all something akin to their mind. Like we spoke about the Torah, so the Torah is rooted in us, rooted in Chesed. We explained what does root mean. Root means that this is what's holding it up.
So we can utilize our chachma to actually relate to this as a reality.
Right. This is where through avoid you Shleimus Avir, as he said, you can go to the essence of Torah. The essence of Torah is not the Torah as you receive it as the giver gives it. It is also given unsolicited.
It's also given what?
Unsolicited. This is the pshat of the word Atnochas Kol Atzmusa Legamre Mikol V'Kol. Now that we know what that is, we're ready to go down. Have a good day.
Mm-hmm.